tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long.
Computer animation. Computer animation. Computer animation.
Let's get started with animation. Hi there. When you're under modeling, you find the Nurbs world here under curves and surfaces. And under surfaces, you find two things which sound like being the same: extend and offset. Extend extends a surface in a certain direction. Let us use this surface, which I just created from two curves, this one and that one. It's just a loft. And now I go to surfaces and extend. And it extends the surface into the right direction. You can do the same thing with the other dimensions, up, down, and to the left. So that's what this does, the extend. And it kind of thinks with the topology of the Nurbs surface. Here, for example, it shrinks slightly. It does a really good job. Now we do the surface and offset command, and press the key 3 to get a smooth display. And here I think, why not just copy it and move it over here? And apart from that, when I change the distance, when I raise the distance, I get strange deformations here. So what is this all about? I don't understand. Well, now I do, and I'm going to explain to you why that is and what it's good for. And it is really useful. So let us delete them all and create something totally different. I go to the front window, and with this tool here, I create a revolve. Just like this. And I use a revolve here, press 3 again, and I have this flower pot, which I want to deform to make it a little bit more interesting. To go to deform and sculpt deformer. The sculpt deformer sits inside currently, and I can scale it up. So it does this kind of deformation, really nice. And now I delete the history of this object so it forgets what it's made of. Edit, delete by type, and history. So the deformers are gone. Actually, I can delete the revolve curve. By the way, this is magic, how fast you can create such a nice soft surface. I want to make this even more interesting by creating a Nurbs plane. And I move the plane up and rotate it a little bit. Just like this. And now I make a cut, and I want this surface to cut the other one. That's why I select the surface first and then the object to cut from my surface, and I go to intersect. Nothing seems to have changed, but actually I have a curve on the surface now, and that's what this tool does. I hide the plane and I have that curve here, which I'll need in just a second. I'll create another plane. And this time I use the attribute editor to make it bigger and change the patches here. And again, I'm going to use a deformer, and this time I'm using a nonlinear wave deformer, which needs to have an amplitude other than 0. And I move the deformer slightly to the side so I don't have that totally symmetric look here. Maybe I can lower the wavelength. Okay, fine. Also here I delete by type the history. So the deformer is gone. I have this surface now, and I move it up. And yes, it looks quite good. I rotate it a little bit like this. All right, and I do the same as before. I select the surface which I eventually want to keep, and then the cutting surface, and I make an intersection, which is intersection number 2. I hide that second plane, and now I trim this surface. I select it, surfaces, and the trim tool. And the trim tool asks me what parts I want to keep, this one and that one, but not the middle one. And then I have this object here, which is quite interesting. Now, when you want to create a duplicate, I just duplicate it and scale it down. When I scale it down, the pivot obviously is down there. And when you scale it down, you have quite a nice part here, like a double skin here, but it makes a total mess here. For example, it penetrates the other surface. That is what the duplicate does. And when I move the pivot somewhere else, you still run into problems if you want to keep this new surface totally inside the other one. The procedure which does make sense here is you select it and go to offset. And I need to press 3 to see the smooth now. And now you see quite an interesting object. When you go to distance now, I want to have it inside the duplicate inside. So I type in minus 0.2, for example. And then I have a very, very interesting new surface, which you see here. And up here. It totally makes sense now. So it adapts the flow of those curves and makes the best it can out of them. If you extend this to a much higher value or negative high value, you run into problems because this command is not made for that. The offset needs to be pretty small. If I raise this value from minus 0.2 to 0.6, for example, the new surface gets smaller, but it still respects the previous one. And now let me go back to 0.2. Now you can select the trim edge. Right mouse click and trim edge. This is one of the trim edges. And with the shift key, I select the trim edge from the other surface, the outer surface. And now I can create a loft from them. And the loft looks totally intact. And now you can change the distance again and create other interesting surfaces. And the thickness gives excellent reflections, and this is all I wanted to tell you about the command surfaces and offset. Bye bye.